Hey everybody, welcome into To The Point. Hope you're doing well on this Friday. Apologies for being out the last few days, but we're back today getting ready for the weekend. We got lots to talk about. NFL Week 2 on the horizon. We got a big UFC event at T-Mobile this weekend with a fight night, but with a title fight attached to it, which is interesting for Mexican Independence Day. So we're going to tee that up. Talk some college football, some big news in Major League Baseball over the last few days when it comes to management, but also results. If you're a Toronto Blue Jays fan, you just have to be despondent beyond repair because your team flat out stinks right now, and you might miss the postseason, which it's a crazy thought looking at their team and the way their season was going and the back and forth, but a lot happening as we head into the weekend. But we'll start today with Thursday Night Football. Last night, Minnesota, Philadelphia. Obviously, Thursday night, you have a short week. Both playing in week 1, Minnesota falling to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Philadelphia winning on the road at New England. Last night was another weird game. The Minnesota Vikings turned the ball over 4 times and yet lost the game by 6 points. Philadelphia wins, but Minnesota covers the spread at 6.5. Philadelphia is 2-0, and Philadelphia has to be happy with that. They were in the Super Bowl last year. But I will say, through 2 weeks, they have been thoroughly unimpressive. They have been a team that's won because of other teams' failures and just being in the right place at the right time. They've gotten a lot of breaks. Against the New England Patriots, Kayshon Boutte stepped outside, couldn't get his feet in. That would have set up a 1st and goal for the Patriots with 20 seconds to go. He couldn't get his feet in. It was a 4th down, turnover on downs. Philadelphia wins the game. Last night, similar thing at the end of the first half. Kirk Cousins finds Justin Jefferson. He's going for the pylon, but he loses his grip on the football. It goes through the end zone, and the ruling now is that's a touchback. It means it's Eagles possession. They get the ball at the Minnesota 20. I think it's a stupid rule, personally. I don't like it. I don't see what it serves, but that's the rule. Justin Jefferson could have set up 1st and goal at the 1. At the very least, you get a field goal before the end of the half. But no, they lose possession, and Minnesota is so bad at tackling, so bad at stuffing the run, they end up getting a 61-yard field goal by Jake Elliott to end the half. Minnesota could have been leading at the half. Instead, they trailed by 13-7, and they threw the game away in the first 8 minutes of the second half. Josh Sweat, who was fantastic all night for the Eagles, forces a fumble on Kirk D. Cousins, recovered by Fletcher Cox inside the Minnesota 10. 3-0 Minnesota. Philadelphia goes down the field, scores another touchdown, and before you know it, the game's over. Through 2 weeks, A.J. Brown has hardly been a part of the Eagles' offense. He got upset on the sideline. He's not getting as many targets. Him and Jalen Hurts do not have the connection that they had last year, yet they are 2-0. The Eagles had a pick 6 against the Patriots. They forced a fumble. They have forced 7 turnovers in the first 2 weeks. Their defense are creating opportunities for their offense because Jalen Hurts, through 2 weeks, this is what I'll say. Brian Johnson's the new offensive coordinator. Shane Steichen is in Indianapolis working with Anthony Richardson now. The amount of design runs on 3rd down are staggering. Why is that the play call every time? It's 3rd and 8, and he's not even looking to pass. It's design run, and the entirety of the first half, Minnesota knew it was coming. And they stuffed it More often than not, he gained no yardage or it was a sack. And that wasn't working. And the passing game wasn't really working unless he hits Devontae Smith down the seam for a long touchdown. They ran the ball over 40 times last night. Swift set a career high in carries and yards. They didn't have Kenneth Gainwell, running back one, but they're interchangeable. So they give the ball to Swift. He had 175 yards rushing, and he ran the ball 28 times, 6 yards a clip. Awesome game for him. Boston Scott ran it 5 times for 40. Minnesota could not stop the run. They turned the ball over, and they couldn't stop the run, and they just make stupid mistakes. And a team that was 13-4 last year starts out this season 0-2, and they have the Chargers in week 3. To finish on Philadelphia, I still view them as a scary team. And I picked Jalen Hurts to win the MVP, and he does not look like the MVP in the first 2 weeks. But the great thing is you're 2-0. You're not 0-2. The Vikings were a playoff team last year in the NFC, and they're in trouble. The Vikings in the history of the franchise have only made it once. Starting the season 0-2, they've only made the playoffs once in their history. I don't think they're going to this year. Their schedule is too tough. Kirk Cousins on the last year of his contract and just the way, and it's not all his fault. He had 1 turnover last night. He threw 4 touchdowns. You look on the stat sheet from week 1 and week 2 and you go, wow, Kirk played pretty well. And he did. He threw the ball well. Justin Jefferson had over 150 yards receiving in both games. He threw 4 touchdown passes, 2 to TJ Hawkinson, 1 to KJ Osborne. The funny thing is, Justin Jefferson is an ultimate threat. He's not a guy that gets a lot of touchdowns, which is staggering that he's not. Because he had 11 catches last night. None of them were in the end zone. So I think Brian Johnson, Jalen Hurts, the Eagles need to work out the kinks of what their offense is going to entail. What are you trying to accomplish on a down-in, down-out basis? You want to be a team that you have the ability to be the team that passes the ball better than anybody. Because you have Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. That 1-2-3 punch is a killer. Devontae Smith's only getting better. Heisman Trophy winner in college. He is completely turned into a stud at the NFL level like Matt Wright and I knew he would be. Suck it, scouts. So I'm concerned about the Eagles. I'm not surprised the Vikings covered the number last night because week 1, the Eagles should have lost the game. And quite frankly, the Eagles should have lost last night too. Justin Jefferson doesn't fumble the ball, they lose. The first half, Philadelphia leads by 6 points. How? If you're Kevin O'Connell, you're watching the tape, you're flying back to Minnesota, you have to just be scratching your head going, what the hell just happened? How did we lose that game last night? We're in one of the toughest environments in the NFL, and yet we should have won. And we made a lot of mistakes as a team. 4 turnovers, and yet you should have won the game. So I think what Philadelphia has to be is appreciative of their position. Appreciative that they are 2-0. That they're in a better spot than most teams are. They're in a better spot than most teams, given their circumstances, would be. Most teams would be 0-2. You're 2-0. And you have the talent. And I do believe in Jalen Hurts as a quarterback because he was the runner-up to the MVP last year, and I think he's awesome. But I think they need to figure out what they are as a team. What makes them dangerous and what you see from last night that can translate is they can run the football. Their offensive line can create massive holes. And they don't need a Jonathan Taylor or a Nick Chubb or an all-pro running back. It can be Swift one week. It can be Boston Scott another. Gainwell one week. And then who the hell knows, give the ball to Rashad Penny. It really doesn't matter. It's just about the team has the ability to run the football effectively and pass. Looking at the game last night, if you can run the ball that well, why have design runs for Jalen Hurts? How about more of an RPO where it's an option? Where it's an option for you to throw the ball down the field. It's not, okay, this is the play. You're running. When there's a loaded box and it's a 3rd and 8, how about trust your receivers on the outside? I think A.J. Brown's more pissed off with the play calling than he was with Jalen Hurts. Because he's going, it's 3rd and 8, and what the hell am I doing? You traded for me last year because I'm a stud. And I'm a decoy on a 3rd down? He had 4 catches for 29 yards last night. In week 1, he didn't have many either. He had more, but he had 79 yards receiving. 7 catches, 79 yards, but he's used to more. He's used to having over 100 yards. He's got to look up and go, wow, I barely got over 100 yards receiving on the season after 2 games. Justin Jefferson has over 300. And he probably thinks he's better than Justin Jefferson. He's not, but he probably thinks he is. So that's the Eagles' point of view. They have the talent. Jalen Carter's already great as a rookie. The middle of their defense is sketchy to me. They gave up some big plays. They gave up a big deep pass to Jordan Addison. They need to work out some kinks. Their defense might not be as good. They lost Nakobe Dean, and that hurts because he was a big part of that defense in the linebacking core, but he won't be out the entirety of the season. He will return. But this team has enough talent. You work out the weeks, they should keep improving. And having that 2-0 cushion is nice. Minnesota. Whew. I thought Tampa Bay was a sneaky trap in week 1, and Tampa Bay ended up winning that game. And then if you lose the trap game in week 1, you get Philadelphia in week 2, short week on the road, you're going to lose that game. So you're 0-2, and this is what Minnesota's got coming up, and it's not fun for Minnesota. I mentioned they got the Chargers in week 3. And I believe they got the Chargers at home, but it's still a tough game. Then they play the Panthers. There's their gimme game in week 4. Week 5, the Vikings host Kansas City. That's fun. Vikings then get the Bears. Okay, you might say the Bears aren't a tough team, but it's a divisional game. It's always interesting, these divisional games. Then they host the 49ers on Monday Night Football. Then they got to go to Green Bay. That's not an easy game. That's their first 8 games. You might say the Bears and Carolina are guaranteed wins. Okay, I'll give you that. Other than that, they will be the underdog in every game that they play in. And they're already 0-2. So you could start your season 2-6. And if you start your season 2-6, you're finished. They're not coming back from that. And you start your season 2-6, questions start to arise. Kirk Cousins, last year of his contract, what's happening here? You didn't offer him more money, so what are you going to do with him? Thinking about it this week, because we talked about the Jets, and the Jets have been the biggest topic in sports, maybe other than Deion Sanders again this week. What do the Jets do at quarterback? And they've been very steadfast that Zach Wilson is our guy, and we're riding with Zach. And for this weekend, Tim Boyle's our veteran backup. We might sign another quarterback in the future, but Zach Wilson is our guy. Okay. I buy that for now. But when you start to lose games, and he's throwing bad interceptions, and the team's pissed off, and as Joe Douglas, as a GM, you know that you have a Super Bowl winning team with a bad quarterback. Do you look around and go, well, who's available? Right now, you might go, well, what's available to us isn't very good. Cam Newton, Carson Wentz, Gardner Minshew. Well, what if you can survive the first 7-8 games of the season? And then you look around and go, well, Kirk Cousins is 2-6 on the Vikings. And the Vikings might go, well, we're 2-6. Why finish 6-11 when we don't have to? Fighting for wins down the stretch just to miss out on the postseason. When they could go, well, we could get a quarterback. We don't have a guy for next season. Do we want to go the veteran route again? Kirk was great for us, but do we want to go the veteran route? Maybe we could get, who knows, maybe we could be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. Maybe we could get Drake May or Quinn Ewers or Michael Penix Jr. from the University of Washington. These things happen if your season isn't going well. And what I think about is, could Kirk Cousins end up on the Jets? If things don't go well for the Rams despite winning week 1, could Matthew Stafford be a target that could end up on the Jets this season? Two players that have been in the league a while, Stafford a Super Bowl champion, Kirk Cousins obviously not, but two guys that are better than Zach Wilson. Two guys that if their seasons go poorly and the team wants to move on because they want to get a new quarterback and the player might want an opportunity to go win either first ring or win another, in Stafford's case, that could be the Jets' option in the next, say, 6 weeks to target your quarterback for the rest of the year. Kirk would be a rental because Kirk doesn't have a contract after this year. You trade for him. He plays out the season with the Jets, and you let him go. You let him go in free agency. He'll go to another team. You hope Aaron Rodgers can return from his Achilles rehab, and then you have him for next season. And Kirk goes somewhere else. Stafford, I believe, has an option for another year in his contract. You could trade Matthew Stafford. Teams would take him. Teams with bad quarterbacks would look around and go, well, Matthew Stafford's pretty good. Minnesota might want Matthew Stafford potentially. Just thinking about an option for a bridge if they don't want to start their rookie right away. Maybe the Bears would look at that. There'd be teams that would be interested in his services, even at his advanced age. I don't think this season's going to go well for Minnesota. And they don't have Kirk Cousins signed, and Justin Jefferson doesn't have a long-term extension yet. Maybe it'll be better. But that Chargers game at home is a must-win. Absolutely a must-win because you can't start your season 0-3. Feelings around that facility with Kirk Cousins and murmuring and is he going to be here long-term and how's this going, those will pick up. The good thing for Kirk is the only quarterback that they have, the backup quarterback on the roster, is Nick Mullins, and he's not like a rookie or a guy that you're really excited to see. It's not like in Cleveland where you have Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who you'd like to see on the field, see what you have in him. Because the NFC North is tricky. Because Detroit's pretty good. You have to play them twice. You have to play Green Bay twice. Minnesota got through those games last year. I don't know if you're getting through them this year. Minnesota, they find ways to lose games. That's what they major in. Finding ways to lose games. Week 2 this weekend in the NFL. Lots of interesting games. Let's start with Green Bay at Atlanta. This game, I love this game. And gambling-wise, this is a very interesting game. Both teams are 1-0. Both teams winning a divisional game in week 1. Atlanta beating Carolina, Green Bay beating Chicago. So you look at that and go, well, both these teams beat teams that aren't very good. Fair statement. Jordan Love looks great in week 1. Can he carry that over? We'll see. Desmond Ridder didn't look all that good in week 1, but Atlanta has so many great skill position players. Let's see what's going to happen. Both teams are pretty healthy, which is good to see. Atlanta is a 1.5 point home underdog. The Atlanta Falcons want to run. No, let me clarify that. The Atlanta Falcons need to run the football to be effective. Plain and simple. That is the way that they operate. Desmond Ridder is a quarterback that is dependent on his running backs to create easier throwing lanes for him. Because quite frankly, he can't do it. I'm not saying he's a garbage quarterback, but he's not an elite one. The Bears last week ran for a little over 100 yards on the Green Bay Packers. Some of that's deceiving, though, because it was a lot in garbage time, and Green Bay won the game by 18 points. And Justin Fields, just the running back position, the running backs did not run for 60 yards. For the whole Bears team did not rush for 60 yards in the running back core. Atlanta's going to want to run the ball with Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. Their two-headed monster. And Cordell Patterson, who missed week 1, looks like he's going to be available for week 2. That's not confirmed yet, but he's another weapon when available. So they're a lethal team that can run the football. And you look at Atlanta and you go offensively, this team should be threatening. This team should be very good because of Drake London and because of the running backs and Kyle Pitts. They have a lot of talent. But I like that Green Bay defense. I think they're more confident than they were in the past. They flew around last weekend making plays. Quay Walker with a pick 6. The only thing I don't like about this is that Atlanta is a home underdog. I love betting a home dog. But I like the Green Bay Packers. I like their team. I like their makeup. I like their head coach. I think this is one of the better games of the weekend. It's a sneaky game. You might go, oh, I don't want to watch this. You should watch this. Talent galore. Both sides. Christian Watson, no confirmation yet, but he did not practice yesterday. He did not play in week 1, the wide receiver. And as I'm going through this, to talk about if anything comes up when it comes to injuries or people confirmed being out, I will let you know because that helps me. I just know guys that didn't. I get all those updates on who didn't practice and I bookmark them to do this segment. I don't like betting favorites, but I know a lot of people do because it's easier to bet the favorite because you feel more confident in the bet. It's a smart bet to take the Packers. Minus 1.5. Green Bay goes into Atlanta, makes a statement, gets the win. Green Bay, in a fun game, close game, beats the Falcons. Bears at the Buccaneers. This game, the Bucs win in Minnesota, and now they head for their home opener. And this team has an aura around them now. Baker Mayfield has the trust of his teammates. They like him. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. This team is full of veterans and they want to play hard and they want to win games because they're a veteran-laden team. I kind of like the Bucks, especially in the NFC South that's wide open. This game intrigues me because I want to see the Bears' response to an embarrassing week one. An embarrassing week one. The Bears should healthy scratch Canadian wide receiver Chase Claypool, who looks like he doesn't even care about football anymore. His lack of effort is offensive. He had many duties to block, didn't do it. His routes are lazy. I wouldn't play him. He probably will, however. But Justin Fields did not play well. Matt Eberflus has not looked great as a head coach in his tenure with the Bears. Embarrassed at home against a division rival. I think Justin Fields is better than most people. But even I have to look at it and go, what's he doing out there? What's this Bears team? What's their plan? What's their identity? One of their starting corners, Kyler Gordon, is on IR. He's going to miss this game. The Bucs are at home. The Bucs have some momentum, and for now, they're going to believe in it. Baker Mayfield is a great to a good quarterback when he has the arrogance to back it up. There's been times in his career when he is just arrogant with no substance. He's like, you go to a bar and you see a guy with no game, but he's just a douchebag, and you go, okay, that guy just sucks. If he was picking up women, if he was doing something with the arrogance, then you know what? Credit to him. Still a douchebag. I still don't want to hang out with him, but at least he's doing what I can't and scoring. Baker has that arrogance, has that cockiness, and when the team believes in him, that great year with Cleveland, I don't know how long this is going to keep going for the Bucs. But it will keep going this week because the Bears just aren't very good. Bucs are going to start the season 2-0. Bucs beat the Bears. Bucs -3. Colts Texans. Battle of the rookie quarterbacks. CJ Stroud has not thrown his first career touchdown pass yet. Anthony Richardson did in week one. Anthony Richardson was hurt at the end of the game, but he's been practicing all week. He's going to be good to go. Colts played better than I expected in week one. They did not cover the number, which I thought they might, but they did not. But they were in it until the fourth quarter. Houston only mustered 9 points against Baltimore, which Baltimore does not have a great defense, in my opinion. Texans' offensive line is compromised. They have some injuries on it. They're not healthy yet. Titus Howard is going to miss the first 4 games at the very least, could be more. I don't think the Colts are a great team, but I think the Colts are better than the Texans. Texans are a 1-point home dog. I would take the Colts money line. I just think Richardson's better. I think the team's a little bit better at this point. Yes, the Texans are at home, but the Colts are just a little farther ahead in their development. Anthony Richardson might just end up being a better quarterback at the pro level than CJ Stroud as well. Colts money line. Ravens Bengals. Here's a fun one. The Bengals couldn't have been worse in week one. Joe Burrow threw for 82 yards. He couldn't complete a ball down the field. T. Higgins did not register a catch. They went 1 for 16 on third down. And now they enter week 2 with another divisional game against the Ravens, who won in week 1 but did not play well either. Lamar Jackson made some poor decisions with the football. He had great chemistry with Zay Flowers, which is great, but the running game was a little compromised. They lost J.K. Dobbins for the season. They lost Marcus Williams for the season. So this team is already beaten and battered. Good news is Mark Andrews has been practicing. It looks like he's going to play in week 2, Lamar Jackson's favorite target. Bengals lost the first 2 games of their season last year. For whatever reason, they start slow. Joe Burrow was hurt in training camp. He looked like he hadn't thrown a football in a couple weeks in week 1. He was that rusty. Bengals offensive line wasn't all that good in week 1, but I will say that Cleveland defense is very good. The Ravens pass rush is not close to being as good as, quite frankly, Cincinnati's or Cleveland's. Baltimore lost Ben Powers to Denver, and they're working in a new offensive line, and they're trying to put all the pieces together to make it fit. Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard, those are the 2 players to watch to see if they can get some pressure on Lamar in this game. Huge test for Lamar, in my opinion, because you have the Bengals who have been better than you since you came into the league. The Bengals who've had more success than the Ravens. Yes, Lamar's won an MVP, and Joe Burrow has not yet. But the Bengals have been to multiple AFC championship games. The Bengals have been to a Super Bowl, while the Ravens are searching, trying to get back to the top of that mountain, which they were at many years ago. I think the biggest deficiency on the Ravens is their defense. Corners, Marlon Humphrey is not playing. He's hurt. So you have mediocre pass rush, a not great secondary. In particular, without Marcus Williams, could put more pressure on Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame to play even better. I think this is a good get-right game for the Bengals. Joe Burrow can't play worse than he did last week. You're at home. The Ravens are good offensively. They will score points in this game. But if you don't turn the ball over, if Joe Burrow plays 50% better than he did last week, I still think you find a way to win the game. Home favorites the way to go here. Bengals minus 3.5. I hate to say it. I hate betting home favorites, and I won't bet this game. But the Bengals are the pick if you like betting favorites. Bengals minus 3.5. Kansas City at Jacksonville. Spicy game here, folks. Kansas City's 0-1 to start the season, losing to the Detroit Lions in one of the bigger upsets. Well, not really, of week 1. To some people, not to me. Jacksonville squeaked out a win over Indianapolis, but they won the game, kind of like Philadelphia. It doesn't matter. You won the game, you're 1-0. You have your home opener. Kansas City, Chris Jones is signed. He's practicing. Travis Kelce's full participant. Both guys are playing this weekend. Kadarius Toney's also going to play after having the worst case of the drops maybe in NFL history. He will be back on the field. Sky Moore. It's going to be all year to see what this Kansas City receiving core can do. Who can break out? Who can be a star on it? Valdez-Scantling is a good receiver. He's not a number 1, but it should improve to have Travis Kelce on the field. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence already has his new favorite target in Calvin Ridley, who had over 100 yards in his first game back after being suspended for a year for gambling on games. 8 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown in week 1. My thing to watch in this game is the Jacksonville offensive line. Trevor Lawrence got sacked 3 times in week 1. The Colts pass rush got to him. Jawan Taylor used to be part of that Jacksonville offensive line. He's now part of the Kansas City offensive line. And oddly enough, this is a game that is going to be led by the pass rushers. Two great quarterbacks. Yep, no doubt about it. But if you can't keep your quarterback upright, then what good are the quarterbacks? I want to see Devin Lloyd and Trayvon Walker and Ray Robertson Harris. Can they get to Patrick Mahomes? On the other side, how does Walker Little at left tackle, Ben Bartch at left guard hold up going up against Chris Jones in his first game? How do you deal with him? How do you deal with that problem? Trayvon Walker was a first overall pick in the draft. He's been a pretty good NFL player. He has more to his game. He can be better. He had 1 sack and 3 solo tackles in week 1. If we're looking over the course of his career, he had 3.5 sacks in 2022. Already 1 in week 1. That's a good start for him. But he was a first overall pick because many people believe this dude is special. This dude can wreak havoc on offensive lines. He needs to do it. This game was a rematch of the AFC divisional round where Kansas City snuck out a win, despite the fact that Mahomes had a bad ankle in that game. Jacksonville at home is tough, certainly. Trevor Lawrence is great. Kansas City aren't as good as maybe they used to be, but I still believe in them. Their receiving core will come together. I think it's close, but I'm going to take Kansas City to win this game. It very well could be a field goal game. I think it's a 3-4 point game. I think it's very close. But I get Kansas City to win it. Kansas City is a road favorite. They're a 3-point road favorite. And I think they bounce back and they find a way to win this game. Las Vegas Raiders at the Buffalo Bills. This is the most crazy line to me of the week, by far. The Las Vegas Raiders are a 9.5 point dog against the Bills. For context, the Raiders won in week 1. They went into Denver and won on the road. The Bills went to MetLife and lost a game to Zach Wilson after Aaron Rodgers blew out his Achilles on the 4th snap. So the Raiders are 1-0, Bills are 0-1, and yet the Bills are a 9.5 point home favorite. Josh Allen, Mr. 4 turnovers, threw away that game. You might look at this and go, well, this is the get right game. This is where people shine. Okay. The Raiders still have Max Crosby. He's pretty good last time I checked. That offensive line for the Bills did not have a good week 1. And yes, the Jets are great defensively, but I love Max Crosby. The dude's a stud. The dude can do everything. I don't disagree with Vegas, and not the Vegas Raiders. I'm talking about the sports book here. I don't disagree with Vegas that the Bills are a better team than the Raiders. I'm with them. Josh Allen is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. Sure. Stephon Diggs. But Jacoby Myers is in concussion protocol. He might not play. That's a big injury. Devontae will be asked to do a lot if you can't have Jacoby Myers in this game. Will they incorporate Michael Mayer more into the offense, who really was a player in week 1 that did not shine for Vegas? He wasn't even a huge part of the offense. He didn't have a catch. Didn't have a target. Garoppolo completed 1 pass to a tight end, and that was Austin Hooper for 20 yards. So if you don't have Jacoby Myers, who had 9 catches If he's not available for week 2, that hurts your team. Certainly, you need to find another option if he's not available. But I still look at the Raiders and go, well, are they going to win the game? No. But can they cover this number? Yes. Hunter Renfrow will be available. Michael Mayer incorporate him more into the offense. They have different running backs that they can use. Jerry Tillery had a very good week 1 for the Raiders. Nate Hobbs is a stud on that defense. I love him. He played great in week 1. But Bills are going to win this game. But I think the Raiders cover. Take the Raiders plus 9.5. Los Angeles Chargers at the Tennessee Titans. Both teams lose in week 1 by very close scores. But you look at the two games, both at very different reasons why he lost. Titans lose because Tannehill could have thrown 7 interceptions. He did throw 3. And they couldn't produce any offense. Chargers lost because they couldn't stop Tyreek Hill from blowing down the field and Tua from just throwing 466 yards and chewing up their defense. So both teams have something to prove. Herbert didn't have to do all that much in week 1 because they ran the ball so effectively. Joshua Kelly ran for over 100 yards. Austin Eckler ran for over 100 yards. Austin Eckler has not practiced this week. He has been a DNP all week long. It is trending towards him not being available for Sunday's game. That's a big loss, but like I said, they do have Joshua Kelly. They do have other guys that can run the football, not to mention Herbert with Quentin Johnson, who really hasn't been introduced to the offense yet or to the NFL. Keenan Allen and Williams are both healthy, so that's a big deal for the Chargers for the time being. The Titans are a weird team. When I predicted every win, I had the Titans losing this game. And I think the Chargers are better than the Titans. But Vrabel and that defense, I think, will keep this close. Tannehill needs to look in the mirror and go, I need to play better, or I'm going to be replaced. I'm a veteran quarterback that was the worst quarter. Other than Josh Allen, he might have been the worst quarterback in the NFL in week 1. He was that awful. He will play better, I believe. But the Chargers are going to win this game. Even without Austin Eckler, I think the Chargers win in Tennessee. Not an easy place to win, but they will. Chargers -3. Seattle at Detroit. Seattle, maybe the most disappointing team in week 1. They get absolutely shellacked at home by the Los Angeles Rams. 2 unknown receivers go over 100 yards receiving. Their defense, which was a calling card last year, did not play well. Geno Smith did not have a great week. Offensively, there was no chemistry. So Seattle's looking in the mirror going, what in the hell just happened? Oh, wait, now we have to go to Detroit with Dan Campbell waiting to bite off a kneecap. He's incredibly ecstatic. They won last Thursday. They're going to the Super Bowl. All good vibes in Detroit. They played last year, and Seattle snuck out a win. But that was in Seattle. They're in Detroit this year. Home opener for the Lions. They've already sold out the game. People are excited about this. People in Detroit are going, holy crap, we actually have a good team. Jared Goff might break the NFL record for attempts without throwing an interception. He's very close to passing it. So he might set an NFL record this weekend. Jahmyr Gibbs, put him on the field. Put him on the field more. Yes, we know you have David Montgomery, and Amon St. Brown is awesome, and Josh Reynolds fits into this offense. And you kept your offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, from last year. He didn't take a head coaching job. So you have everything going for your team. And Seattle was awful in week 1. Going through these games, there has to be an upset. Nobody saw the Rams winning. I thought, okay, Cleveland can win, but were they going to get shellacked? I didn't see that coming. What's the upset? I don't think it's the Bears. I don't. If the Texans beat the Colts, that's not really an upset. Both teams stink. Titans win, that'd be a bit of an upset for me. Seattle at Detroit. Detroit should have lost to Kansas City, and Kansas City did not play well, and Kansas City did not have a wide receiver who could make a catch. Maybe Geno Smith's a one-year wonder. Maybe that's what we're finding out. They put up 13 points, only threw for 112 yards. Went 16 for 26 through the air. Not great. Detroit's very good. They are. Look, Metcalf, Smith and Jigba, Lockett. Can you unlock some of these players on the outside? Can you find space for these guys to succeed? This is my pick for the week of just why did this happen? Why did it happen to Seattle? I think Seattle's a good team. I think offensively, they can put up points. We might have a shootout in this game. But I'm going with Seattle to rectify the wrong in week 1. Give me Seattle plus 5.5. You can get them as a road underdog. Maybe they don't win the game, but maybe they lose by 3 points. And guess what? You cover the spread and you win money. Their receivers on the outside can beat the Detroit corners. And if Geno Smith has enough time to make those throws, yes, Charles Cross is out, and they're going to bring in new offensive linemen. I get that. Aiden Hutchinson is a flat-out problem, just as the Kansas City offensive line, who had to cheat the entire game just to keep him away from Pat Mahomes. I'm still going with Seattle for some reason. Seattle plus 5.5. New York Giants at Arizona. Giants lost 40-0 at home week 1. Disaster. But here's the thing. They are a 6-point road favorite because Arizona sucks. Josh Dobbs gets the ball again in week 2. Josh Dobbs wasn't terrible, actually, for Arizona. He's never terrible. Wherever he is, he's always a decent backup. He'll keep you in the game, but he won't win the game, which is perfect. Exactly what Arizona wants. Pretend that we're competitive. Pretend that we're a good team. We know we're not. We'll go into Washington and we'll lose by 4 points. The New York Giants need to establish the run early in the game. Need to allow passing lanes for Daniel Jones, for him to throw the ball on the run, to scramble. More of that first drive before the bad snap by the new rookie center out of Minnesota, Schmitz Jr. Arizona is not a competitive team. They do not want to win games. The Giants will go in Arizona and get this win. Get back on track, so to speak. The get-right game, if you will. Giants, -6. San Francisco at the Los Angeles Rams. Both teams are 1-0. I did not expect that entering week 2. I thought both teams would have lost. I thought San Francisco was going to lose to the Steelers. They destroyed them. San Francisco looked like the best team in the NFL in week 1. Now they go play their nemesis, the Rams. The Rams, under the McVay era, have one win against Kyle Shanahan. That was the NFC Championship game. The Rams then went on to win the Super Bowl. They have no success in the regular season against San Francisco. The pass rush, the offense, it always just seems that Kyle Shanahan is one step ahead. The Rams are at home, but that's irrelevant because the Rams and the Chargers don't have home field advantage because they don't have any real fans. Not harsh, just the truth. There was 80% of the stadium in week 1 were Dolphins fans at the Chargers game, and the Dolphins don't have a great fan base. That offensive line is going to be tested for the Rams. Note Boom, Brian Allen, the new guys brought in. Can you hold up? Tutu Atwell and Pakua. Great stories in week 1. But you got Hufanga. You got Williams covering you now. Fred Warner in the middle of that defense. It's a different animal when you're playing San Francisco. How about that Rams defense? Can you deal with Ayuk? Can you deal with Christian McCaffrey used in so many different ways? With George Kittle, who was hardly a factor in week 1 because he didn't have to be? Rams are an 8-point home underdog. And you think Noah loves betting home dogs, which I do. And I like Matthew Stafford. It's a good quarterback. But I'm not taking the +8. I'm not getting lured into this. This is a scary game because they want you to take it. But I'm not. I'll be honest. I would be more prone to take Arizona +6 than I would Rams +8. If you're gambling and you want to find just an underdog, a home underdog that you like, I don't like the Rams. I don't at all. They might have won week 1. They're not winning week 2. San Francisco, -8. New York Jets at the Dallas Cowboys. Zach Wilson, new quarterback for the Jets. Aaron Rodgers had surgery yesterday. All went well. Great. The Dallas Cowboys looked fantastic in week 1, maybe the second best team behind the aforementioned San Francisco 49ers. Dallas can rush the passer. Dallas can cover. Dallas, on defense, really doesn't have a weakness. They improved their team so they could stop the run more effectively, and that worked in week 1 outside of that first drive. The Jets, this week, it's a short week. You're trying to implement your system for Zach Wilson because you brought in an offensive coordinator who won 2 MVPs with Aaron Rodgers, who did not plan on having one snap with Zach Wilson because nobody on the Jets wanted to see Zach Wilson take the field this year, probably including Zach Wilson. But now you look around and go, well, shit, we got to figure this out quickly. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence against almost 40-year-old Dwayne Brown and Mekhi Becton at the left and right tackles. I don't like that matchup. I really don't. Because the Bills' average pass rushing without Von Miller with Leonard Floyd and Greg Rousseau dominated them and couldn't keep the quarterback upright. And now we're talking about Zach Wilson, who, yes, is more athletic than Aaron at his age, but he is not as intelligent of a quarterback as Aaron or has the pocket awareness, so he can still get sacked 5 times in this game, no doubt about it. The saving grace for the Jets in every game that they play in, it's their defense. Their defense is great. Just is. They can get to the quarter. Quentin Williams is an absolute monster. A monster that can wreak havoc on any team, on any offensive line. I mentioned this because it wasn't really discussed by any show. The Dallas offense was not good in week one. And it's weird because you're up 40-0, so your play calling might be a bit fastidious and it might be a bit mundane and dry, but Dak Prescott did not do anything impressive. They didn't run the ball that well. They had short fields. Their defense put up points. Their special teams put up points. And Dak just was there. So what is this offense? Brandon Cooks has a knee injury. He might not play. CeeDee Lamb, their tight end room, still waiting for that to kind of percolate what that's going to be. Dallas is a 9.5-point home favorite this weekend. And Dallas is great. I'm not doubting their skill. They're one of the best teams in the NFL. I want to take the Jets. I really do. Be fun to take the Jets in this game against the Cowboys. Getting 9.5 points is nice. Anytime you're gambling. Just like the Bills spread, you look at it and go, wow, that's a big spread. But I can't logically come up with an argument why I should take the Jets because it's not Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson learning this Nathaniel Hackett offense in 5 days. You could say, well, he learned it in the preseason. Well, did he? Didn't play all that well in the preseason. I'm not betting this game. If I was you, I would not gamble on this game because I don't trust it. And for some, I just in the back of my head, I go, the Jets they're not gonna win, but they're gonna play pretty well in this game. But then I go, well, the Dallas Cowboys pass rush is so good. No, the play is Dallas minus 9.5. But if the Jets cover that, I just have that feeling that they will. But Dallas should win this game by a lot. Should be another blowout win for the Cowboys. Because at this juncture, they're a much better team than the Jets at every facet. Washington Commanders, otherwise known in this program as the Washington football team, against the Denver Broncos. Denver loses at home in week one to the Raiders. They only put up 16 points. Washington beats Arizona, so you beat the worst team in the NFL. Now you link up in week two. Denver looked great in the first half. Great in the first half. Russell Wilson was playing well. The play calling was effective. They had 2 drives that resulted in touch. They had 6 possessions the entire game, the Denver Broncos, in week one, which is staggering. Only 6 possessions. They kept the Raiders on the field a while on the defense. When they went on their drives, both touchdown drives were over 8 minutes. So that's something to look at. The Denver pass rush is pretty good. They can get to the quarterback. Randy Gregory and the pieces they brought in. Frank Clark. I didn't expect the Broncos to lose in week one. They did. The Commies get a win against a bad Arizona team. I thought this spread was going to be 3 points. Because normally when you're at home, you get 3 points. You can get an extra half point with the Broncos. Why is that? They don't deserve that respect, in my mind. If Russell Wilson and the Broncos offense play like they did in the first half, they are going to win this game. In the second half, anything's available. Anything can happen because in the second half, they couldn't do anything offensively. I think Sam Howell is pretty good. Had an interception in week 1. He had a rushing touchdown. He does have athleticism. Dan Orlovsky on NFL Live has been pointing this out very well. Does such great breakdowns. That Sam Howell needs to learn how to move up in the pocket and avoid sacks, which that comes with time. He needs just to go through it, learn when you're getting kind of swallowed up, to move up, to create more throwing lanes, to keep a play going. But Zach Allen, Randy Gregory, this defense is pretty solid. Surtain is great, obviously, for the Broncos. Singleton is a tackling machine, former CFLer. Had a couple tackles for losses in week 1. He had 8 tackles total. 3.5. It's bugging me out. Why the half? Washington plus 3.5. I don't know if they win the game, but I think they cover the spread. It's a 3-point game. You can get that half point. Give me the commies. Last game of the day, Sunday Night Football. The Miami Dolphins at the New England Patriots. New England is a 2-point home underdog. Normally you go, why is this on Sunday Night Football? The Patriots offense actually had offense in week 1. They produced. Mac Jones threw for 3 touchdowns. He was effective. He made smart decisions. They looked like they actually ran routes. Kendrick Bourne was on the field. He caught 2 touchdowns. They have 2 tight end sets with Gesicki and Hunter Henry. This team should have beaten the Eagles, as I mentioned earlier, but they had a disastrous first quarter, and they threw it away. So now what? Well, now they need to look around and go, we have our formula. We can play offense. Our defense is amazing. Again, they gave up 14. Their defense was thrown the door. Basically, 14 points was put on their defense by proxy because of just complete ineptitude and failure. You go, they gave up 25 points. Hardly. They kept Jalen Hurts to 170 yards passing. They didn't allow the Eagles to rush for 100 yards. They did a lot of things well. Mac Jones, here's the thing that the Patriots have to do in this game. Run the football. That's their key. That's what the Chargers did in week 1, and they ran for a boatload. As a team, the Chargers had 233 rushing yards with Herbert, Kelly, and Eckler. The Patriots never got that going because they were always behind, and Mac Jones threw the ball 54 times. That can't happen. They had 76 rushing yards. Ramondre Stevenson had 12 carries for 25 yards. That's trash. Zeke Elliott had 7 for 29. That's pretty trash too. They need to establish the run early, which will allow play action for Mac Jones to throw the ball down the field. Because he has receivers now. They're not elite skill position guys, but they're decent. Juju, Douglas. I mean, you look at that. Kendrick Bourne had 6 catches. Stevenson had 6. Henry 5. Zeke Elliott 5. Douglas 4. Schuster 4. Gesicki 3. Ty Montgomery 2. And he targeted Kayshon Boutte 2 times, but neither of them were completed. So he has different weapons that he can throw the ball to all over the field. The Miami offense is fantastic. Asking anybody to cover Tyreek Hill really is not fair. Then you add Jalen Waddle to that mix. The key is the pass rush winning. Judon, Dietrich Wise Jr., Lawrence Guy Sr. Can you beat the Dolphins? Teron Armstead's not going to play in this game again. Can you get to Tua to affect his throws? This is going to be a close game. It's a divisional game, so things will happen that don't make sense. I think Miami does win the game, however. And Miami -2 is the play, but the Patriots play well again, and that's the thing. They'll be 0-2, and you'll look up and go, geez, if you're a Patriots fan, we're 0-2, our season is screwed, but you're playing pretty good football. That's the frustrating thing. But if the Patriots keep progressing the way it's going, they can compete with the Dolphins. They can compete with the Jets, definitely, with the quarterback situation, and you can compete with the Bills. You need to figure out you need to beat the Bills once, because you never do since Josh Allen's gotten there. But you are progressing and you're getting better. That's what Patriots fans need to think about right now is, wow, our team is actually competent. And by the end of the year, maybe we're a threat to a lot of different teams. No big inactives yet. Like I said, Austin Eckler, unlikely to play for the Chargers. That's a big one when it comes to fantasy too, because I know he's a guy who gets taken in a lot of drafts. So there's that. College football this weekend. Week 3, and it's by far the weakest slate. The next 2 weeks after this one are loaded. Next weekend, there's so many ranked games. It's an amazing slate. But for this weekend, you got Florida State at Boston College. Boston College nearly lost to Holy Cross last weekend. Florida State's one of the best teams in the country. FSU, they got Clemson next week. That's going to be their game. They need to prepare for that one. They'll play well. Florida State -26.5. Don't bet that game, however. Kansas State at Missouri. K-State was the best team in the Big 12 last year. They have not lost a game yet. Missouri, yes, they're in the SEC, and you might get more pub. They're a 4.5-point home underdog. K-State's going to win that game. LSU at Mississippi State. LSU 1-1, losing to Florida State and then beating some community college last week. Mississippi State beating Arizona in overtime. Mississippi State can put up points, as can LSU. An SEC matchup, 9.5 for Mississippi State. LSU is going to win this game because they're going to rattle off a bunch of wins. They lose in week 1, then they'll rattle off a bunch. But I think Mississippi State covers. This is a game where you can get a little underdog action. I like it. Mississippi State +9.5. Penn State at the Illini. Penn State might have the best quarterback in the Big Ten in Drew Aller. They got a two-headed monster at running back. They didn't run the ball that well last week. This is a game where they know they got Michigan down the pipe. They got Ohio State down the pipe. They need to be ready for that. I think they play Iowa next weekend as well, another ranked team inside the Big Ten. Penn State, they're a 14.5 road favorite. Take Penn State money line, and I think they'll cover that 14 points because Illinois lost a lot of talent to the NFL last year. They're not the same team, and Penn State's one of the best teams in the country. These two games, Central Michigan, Notre Dame, it's a 34.5-point spread. Really, Notre Dame's schedule so far this year has been a joke, and I think their team's really good, so I'm not being harsh on them. But Central Michigan, come on, 34.5. This will be a Sam Hartman game. He's got over 100 touchdown passes to his name already. He'll add 3 or 4 to that total. Cedric Estime will have a couple rushing touchdowns. This is a game that goes like 56-10. Notre Dame absolutely wins it. Don't bet it. Minnesota, North Carolina. North Carolina wins in double overtime last weekend against App State. Minnesota is 2-0 as well. You have a Big Ten versus an SEC matchup here. Minnesota doesn't score. That's their problem. They're a good program. PJ Fleck he's got some questionable decisions, but he's building a pretty good program, a team that's competitive year in, year out. Their quarterback is decent after having Tanner Morgan for a bunch of years. But I like North Carolina. in the ACC. Drake May and that offense can put up points. I don't think Minnesota can match it. I'd love to take Minnesota plus 7.5, but I thought the number would be more than that. I like North Carolina. South Carolina at Georgia. Georgia's first real test on the season, even though South Carolina is not that big of a test. They played last year. Georgia dominated them. They meet again this season. Carson Beck's looked pretty good in the first 2 weeks, again, against minimal opponents. South Carolina's offensive line has not helped them in the first couple weeks. It's hurt. It's been their flaw. North Carolina took advantage of it. Georgia's defense is always good under Kirby Smart. Georgia minus 27.5. Washington at Michigan State. Normally you go, okay, this game should be close. Michigan State's a 16.5-point home underdog. Mel Tucker is going to be fired as their head coach because of a scandal involving sexual harassment at the program where he, and this is true, it sounds like it'd be made up in a fiction novel, he sexually harassed a woman who was on campus to teach everybody about sexual harassment, about teaching them how to avoid it, how not to do it, because she was a woman that was raped in the past. He did that to her. That's their head coach, the guy they gave 10 years, $95 million. So their program's in the shitter. It's completely off the rails at Michigan State. Meanwhile, Washington has it on the rails. Kalen DeBoer's a great head coach. They got two of the great wide receivers in the nation. Washington plays in the Pac-12, which is the best conference in college football this year. Might be the last year, but it's the best conference. Washington goes to Michigan State. Pac-12 beats the Big Ten. They win by 21 plus. Michael Penix Jr. in the Heisman race, in the race to see if he's going to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks taken in this draft. He's awesome. Tennessee at Florida. SEC matchup. Tennessee has not lost, but they have been thoroughly unimpressive in their first 2 games of the year. Joe Milton is not Hendon Hooker. This offense is not as explosive. I think the wide receivers are as good. They just don't have the options to. They don't have a quarterback to get the ball to them. Meanwhile, Florida lost to Utah in week 1, but that was in Utah, tough place to play. Yes, there was backup quarterbacks and a bunch of different circumstances. But I don't trust Tennessee. And you're going down to the Bayou and you can get Florida as a 6.5-point home underdog. Graham Mertz is not a great quarterback, but Florida needs a win. They need a win that goes on their resume that you're impressed with. You go, wow, that's something. Their program needs this win. Tennessee is the 11th ranked team in the country. That's way too high for what they put on tape this year. The University of Miami has looked more impressive than Tennessee. Any of the teams. Like they're 11. Utah has been more impressive because they haven't had their quarterback yet. Oregon State, are you kidding? Oregon State's look really good. Ole Miss, Colorado, Oklahoma. I could keep going here. My UCLA Bruins. Whew. I like Florida plus 6.5. Maybe Joe Milton has his coming out party finally, but I watched 2 of their games and they've been thoroughly unimpressive. You can get Florida as a home underdog. I like that play. Florida plus 6.5, and I also think they find a way to win the game. How do you like that? BYU at the Razorbacks. Arkansas in the SEC. They got a lot of talent. KJ Jefferson, their quarterback, is an interesting guy. He just seems like a player that every NFL scout's going to go, you shouldn't play quarterback. You should play wide receiver, running back, or middle linebacker. But he can throw the football. Their top running back's out for the game, which hurts them. BYU's not the program that it once was with Zach Wilson and some of the great talent that they had at BYU. But there's still a team that you go, okay, well, BYU. BYU's always in the mix. You get to play Arkansas. who are always interesting to me. Arkansas is 8.5-point home favorite. I like BYU plus 8.5, but I think the Razorbacks win at home. Syracuse at Purdue. Syracuse is 2-0. Syracuse is building a good little program. Purdue loses in week 1 to Fresno State in a game they should have won, but they lost. Then they go play for Virginia Tech in the ACC, and they win that game on the road. So they're 0-1 at home, 1-0 on the road. Now they get a home game against Syracuse. Syracuse is interesting because, like I said, Schrader, their quarterback's pretty good. They still have Gadsden, who I think will be a target for the NFL because he's a tight end, wide receiver. What is he? I don't know. Jack of all trades. Purdue is always a fun team to watch. It's not a great weekend for games, but this one to me is one I will watch. Syracuse is a 2.5-point road favorite. That concerns me. I don't like that for some reason. Purdue, Aiden O'Connell's in the NFL with the Raiders. They had him forever. Their quarterback now, because you got the transfer portal, so you might as well use it. They have Hudson Card, who is formerly with Texas, as their quarterback. So he's now over with Purdue. He's now a Boilermaker. Fun game to watch, certainly. I'm going with Syracuse, however, as a road favorite, but this is a fun one. A couple lines that were hard to find for whatever reason. They closed, and I wanted to keep them for today because these lines are just they're interesting to me. I went, why didn't they didn't have them up? And there were games that I go, well, I'd want to bet on this game. And the first game that I looked at was Pitt and West Virginia. That's what you do. You go in the app. You go down. We'll see if they've opened up that line yet. Because if they haven't, I'm going to be upset. But we're going to find it. I promise you. Pitt at West Virginia. And now I can't find it again. So that's puzzling to me. Why that is not available to gamble on. Because it's one of the more... It's on national TV this weekend, and maybe I am just blind as I was going through games. Oh, there it is. I am blind. Pitt at West Virginia. Pittsburgh's a 2.5-point road underdog at the Mountaineers. West Virginia is not a fun place to play. Pitt has Phil Jurkovec at quarterback, who's a transfer from Boston College. He's got a big arm, a lot of talent. Pitt lost a game I thought they were going to win last week, quite frankly. But they lost to... Find that for you, because I know probably some of you don't care, but it bugs me. Pittsburgh football. They lost to Cincinnati. Yes, Cincinnati last week, which was a surprise. Cincinnati, a non-Power 5 school, but they've had success. Emory Jones is now their quarterback there, another transfer who was at Florida, then he went to Arizona State. Now he's at Cincinnati. They're 2-0, the Cincinnati Bearcats. But now Pitt goes to West Virginia, which is always a fun, when these two teams meet up, it's a fun matchup. West Virginia, 1-1 on the season. They lost to Penn State. No shame there. They kept the game close, quite frankly, which I give them credit for. Close spread, West Virginia at home. That's likely to play, but Pitt could easily win that game. The other game that interested me a little bit is Wyoming at Texas. Wyoming is 2-0. They beat Texas Tech, a Big 12 school. They've had an impressive start. Texas beat Alabama, and they're very good. My interest on it is not Wyoming's not going to beat Texas. The spread is 29.5. I like Wyoming to cover that. It's a big spread. Texas is one of the best schools in the nation, no doubt about it. But you're coming off a great week. You just beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. You're going to win this game. You're top fourth ranked team in the country. But I like Wyoming plus 29.5 to cover that. And the last game of the day, College Game Day, Fox Big Noon. They're both going to Boulder, Colorado to see Deion Sanders. First Take is doing a show there right now. I think McAfee has a show there today. Colorado State playing Colorado. Colorado's the 18th team ranked in the country. This is their game before we get to the real games. They're at Oregon next weekend, and then they have USC the weekend after. They're a 22.5-point home favorite against Colorado State. And the crazy thing is, they're probably going to cover that spread. It's a late game. It's at 11 o'clock, but it's Deion Sanders, and people will be interested in it. I like Colorado minus 22.5. The wave of confidence continues. They get Oregon next weekend, which will be fantastic. Again, not a great weekend in college football, not a whole lot of interesting, but there will be some good games that you don't expect. Week 4, this is what I'm excited about. Oklahoma, Cincinnati, not a bad game. Two teams are going to be undefeated. Emory Jones doing his thing. Florida State at Clemson, ACC matchup. Ole Miss at Alabama, fun game. Duke, Colorado at Oregon. UCLA at Utah. Yes, please. Maryland, Michigan State, pretty good game. Go into the night. Arkansas, LSU. That's going to be good. If Arkansas wins this week, they might be ranked. You'll have two ranked teams. Oregon State, the Beavers at Washington State. Two teams I expect to be undefeated when they play next weekend. They'll both win this weekend. Texas at Baylor. Not bad. How about the Ohio State at Notre Dame? Iowa at Penn State. Sheesh. North Carolina at Pitt. Cal at Washington. That's all next weekend. Wisconsin, Purdue on a Friday night. Take that. That's next weekend in college football. Not as many interesting matchups this weekend, but there will be some gems. Because there always are, because it's college football. Also this weekend, Noche UFC, Mexican Independence Day at T-Mobile, full arena, Valentina Shevchenko versus Alexa Grasso, the rematch for the title. Grasso at the 4th round submission, one of the biggest upsets of the year until Sean Strickland won last weekend. Now you get the flyweight rematch. Grasso is the underdog as the champion coming into this fight. I thought Shevchenko lost to Taila Santos, even though the judges gave her the win. And then she loses to Alexa Grasso. Grasso striking was better in that fight. When it got to the ground, you could say Shevchenko had the advantage, but ultimately it was Grasso that put her in the submission. I think Grasso defends her belt. It might not be another finish, but I think Grasso will win and retain her title. You can get her as an underdog to win. That is my bet right now. Shevchenko's 35. She isn't as good as she used to be. Her last couple fights, the women she's been in there have outclassed her, and I think it happens again. Co-main event, Kevin Holland against Jack Della Maddalena. Fun fight. Kevin Holland is a rock star every time he gets in the cage. JDL had his worst performances in the UFC in his last time out, where he took a fight, fought a guy on short notice in Basil Hafez, and Hafez looked pretty good. Hafez, I thought you could have argued, he at least won a round, and he kept the fight extremely competitive, taking down JDL with ease. Kevin Holland's not going to be taken down. Della Maddalena, this fight's going to be on the feet. Kevin Holland's going to have fun in there. And currently, JDL is the favorite. I like Kevin Holland. 2 upsets, co-main and the main event. I like the upset wins. Kevin Holland via knockout to beat Jack Della Maddalena. Third fight on the card, 18-year-old Raul Rojas Jr. fighting Terrence Mitchell. Rojas' first fight since April when he lost his first pro fight to his first pro loss to Christian Rodriguez, who is awesome. Big thing for Raul, how's his gas tank? Has he worked on his striking at all? He doesn't even try to land shots in fights. And does he pressure to get the finish? Does he pressure to try to lock in a hold to get the fight done in the first round? You need to see that improvement. He's such a young fighter. I think it might be a little early for him even to be in the UFC. He submitted Jay Perrin in the first round in December, loses to Christian Rodriguez by decision. Terrence Mitchell has one UFC fight. He lost to Cameron Saman. That was back in July. So, and Cameron's really good. Cameron's a really good fighter. He's 14-3 as a pro. He's won a lot of fights outside the UFC. This is his second UFC appearance. Currently, he's a plus 480 underdog against Rojas. It's a big number. But I do think Rojas is a better fighter when he's not fighting just a lot of talented guys. Mitchell, I think he'll have trouble with him. I think Rojas to win the fight. Daniel Zellhuber against Christian Giacos. Zellhuber's really he's a fun fighter. He's only 24, and he suffered his first pro loss in September 2022, but he came back in April, got a win against Landon Venata when he fought in Nashville. He now gets Christos, who's 33, who has bounced around. He's fought a lot of good guys. But I think Daniel gets the win. He's the favorite. He wins this fight. Last fight on the main card, you get Fernando Padilla against Canadian Kyle Nelson. Kyle Nelson really saved his UFC career back in June when he beat Blake Bilder at UFC 289 in Vancouver. Now he gets Fernando Padilla, who beat Julian Erosa in April via a first-round knockout. A very good striker, dangerous with his hands. But Kyle Nelson is solid in a lot of different ways. He's the underdog going into this fight, but he was the underdog going into the fight against Blake Bilder. He's a massive underdog going into that fight. He's been in the UFC since 2018. He's beaten Jay Herbert. He's fought Billy Q. He's been in the cage with a lot of very talented guys. And I'm going with the Canadian. I'm going with Kyle to pull off another big win, another upset, if you will. He keeps riding that momentum. Remainder of the card, you get Roman Kopylov, who's a middleweight who's surging right now against Josh Freeman. He's got 2 straight knockout victories this year, one in January, one in July. Wouldn't surprise me if he gets another one this weekend. And then, really, this fight should be higher on the card. Again, I complain about this. But women's flyweight, Tracy Cortez, who's not fought in a minute. She has not fought since May of 2022 when she got a win. She's fighting Yasmin Yazdavichus from Canada, who is now ranked, who defeated Miranda Maverick. And since she came from the Contender Series, she has not lost. She's just a solid fighter, not afraid to get in there with anybody. Now she gets Tracy Cortez. They're both getting plus money, so this is really a pick'em fight. I think Jasmine just has looked really good. I think she's confident. Tracy hasn't fought in a long time. I think the Canadians do well on this card. I think Jasmine wins again. She is going to rise into likely the top 12 of the women's flyweights. This should be higher on the card too because the main event is a women's flyweight fight. Why not have another flyweight bout scheduled on the card a little bit higher. They do that all the time. They did it in Boston for the UFC 292. Yes, 292 in Boston. So why not do it here? But again, I can't fix everything about the UFC. But you get that this weekend. You get football, college football, NHL training camps are opening. Spittin' Chicklets is trying to fire Mike Babcock before he's even there. I'm not even going to get into that because I think it's bullshit, quite frankly. But I actually believe Mike Babcock. You might think I'm crazy for that, but I'm not going to. I don't think he did anything wrong in this case. And maybe the Mitch Marner super fans will disagree with me, but that's fine. The Red Sox fired Chaim Bloom. He only had one playoff appearance. He was their chief baseball officer, but he traded. I mean, you look at it. He traded Mookie Betts. He dealt with the Alex Cora scandal. He gave Chris Sale and Trevor Story contracts, both of which have been disasters. He's going to miss the playoffs again this year. I don't know how good he's. Theo Epstein reportedly is not interested in the gig. He's already worked for the Red Sox. He's already won a World Series with the Red Sox. He's working with Major League Baseball right now, so they'll have to find somebody else. Won't be David Stearns because he took the job with the New York Mets. So he's their new president of baseball ops. He did it with the Brewers for a long time. He now joins the Mets to work with Steve Cohen. The Jays got swept by Texas. They're now in a game and a half back of the final wildcard spot. They look absolutely lethargic in this series. A pathetic performance the last two nights, 9-2 and 10-0 losses, respectively. Pardon me. Just it was booed off the field both nights. Starting pitching done. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. gets a home run for the first time in forever. Who cares? Him and Bo Bichette, lethargic. The rest of the team, nothing. Now you get the Red Sox, who they swept in their last series that they played against one another, but they still have a losing record against the Red Sox this year. I believe the Blue Jays do not have another series this year against a non-divisional team. I could be wrong about that, but I think I'm right. Okay, check that just to make sure, because I like to be accurate about these things. They got the Yankees for 3 next week. Then they go to Tampa for 3. Then they host the Yankees, and they host the Rays. So yeah, the rest of their season, all divisional matchups. No more American League. It's all American League East. And 2 against Tampa is not optimal because they're playing great baseball right now. They beat the Orioles last night, and they're now a half game back of the Orioles. Half game back of first place of in the American League East and first place in the American League. But the Blue Jays, there's trouble with Alek Manoah and what's happening with him, and there's not a lot of certainty what's going on there, and he's not ready to pitch. He says. All I know is that the Atlanta Braves have won 6 straight National League East titles, and they've won a World Series in that time, and they made it to multiple NLCSs. And Alex Anthopoulos couldn't draft, he couldn't develop, he made poor decisions, he went all in too much. I don't know. This Blue Jays organization hasn't won a fucking playoff game, Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, and yet Alex Anthopoulos was horrible at the job. He was the wrong guy. And when they brought in these guys are the saviors, and it was a bunch of shit. People ate it up. People are starting to realize, maybe Alex Anthopoulos is just really good at his job. Maybe he's just a really good executive. 96 wins in Atlanta. They're going to get to over 100. Matt Olson's going to set the record for most home runs ever hit by an Atlanta Brave in a single season. Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to win the MVP. They're going to have maybe 5 players on their team hit over 35 home runs. Ozuna, Riley, Albies, Acuna, and Matt Olson, which is incredible. But hey, Ross Atkins is the boy genius. If they miss the playoffs, things will happen. And it won't be a Vladimir Jr. massive extension, I'll tell you that, because he hasn't earned that this year. But Blue Jays fans, your season's not done yet. I know it feels like it is after this week, but it isn't, because you control your own destiny and you play teams in your own division. Get the job done, then you're in. But good on Texas for whooping the Jays. They got Cleveland this weekend. The Braves are playing the Marlins in an important series. The Cubs are in Arizona in a big series. Blue Jays fans, something to brighten your spirits. The Mariners have to play the Dodgers for 3. You got the Red Sox. They got to play the Dodgers. That's no fun. Astros are in Kansas City. Rays, Orioles. Obviously, that's a huge series. In the National League, San Francisco, Cincinnati, Arizona, all tied for the final wildcard spot, and the Marlins are only a half game back. Craziness. Crazy, that's where we're at. All separated by at least half a game, but the final 3 are all in lockstep. Phillies and Cubs are battling for the top wildcard position. The Cubs are 4.5 games back of the Brewers in the National League Central. I don't think they're going to catch them, but we'll see. Big weekend on the docket. Hope you guys all enjoy it. We'll be back next week. Thank you for tuning in today and all the support. Until then, this is To The Point.